from brides falling into trances, to ghostly faces in wedding pictures, and ceremonies that look like cultic rituals. These bizarre wedding moments aren't just scary, they will leave you feeling unsettled. Right when the groom began his vows, the bride lowered her head and started saying words no one understood. Her voice changed, and at first, people thought she was just overwhelmed. But as her speech turned into fast, rhythmic sounds, the groom broke into tears. They thought her behavior indicated the presence of the Holy Spirit, but others weren't so sure. Rumors spread across the crowd, whether it was divine or something unholy speaking through her. In some cultures, sudden tongues at sacred events aren't always seen as holy. Sometimes they're warnings. What do you believe? Comment below. Sinister woman. This clip was just plain unsettling. It showed a girl in the middle of what looked like a creepy ritual. At first, it's hard to tell what's happening, but then you notice her. Odd movements, almost like she was not in control. Her tongue stuck out unnaturally, and her teeth sharp, vampire-like. The people around her seemed unfazed, like this was all part of the plan, but everyone who saw the clip later was stunned. Was it a possession, a dark ritual, or something even stranger? No one could say for sure, but one thing's clear: this wasn't normal. Weird dance. This weird clip was recorded just as the bride and groom were walking out of the venue, with their guests following behind. Everything seemed normal until the bride suddenly started dancing in a strange, jerky way. At first, people thought she was just being playful, but she didn't stop. It looked like she had no control over it. Her family rushed to calm her down, but she seemed to have slipped in a trance. Some said she was possessed. Others believed something evil had attached itself to her during the ceremony. Whatever it was, that moment turned a happy celebration into something disturbing and hard to forget. Overwhelmed bride. The bride stood in the center with eyes closed and her arms moving in slow, unusual ways. At first, people thought it was part of the performance, maybe a traditional dance, but as her movements grew stranger, the crowd seemed upset. Then 2 women stepped forward, sensing something was off, but just as they approached, the bride fell. Some guests looked worried, but others were confused. The clip later went viral, with people calling it a possession, but those familiar with Indonesian customs pointed out something else. They said this kind of bridal movement is seen in several wedding videos there, so it is possible that it wasn't haunting, but something cultural. Interrupted ritual. It was a picture-perfect Indonesian wedding where the bride and her bridesmaids moved in sync, performing what looked like a traditional ceremonial dance. But right in the middle of it, the bride's body froze, and she fell on the floor. The video cut off, leaving behind confusion and concern. Her family blamed stress, but guests saw something else. And what's more disturbing was that locals mentioned a secretive group said to mix rituals with dark practices. And shockingly, the girl was once part of that group, so now we can say that she brought something sinister with her. Struggling woman. This bride sat quietly as the ceremony began until something inside her seemed to snap. Suddenly, she broke into tears, then screamed, and her body shook uncontrollably. She gasped, cried, and clutched herself tightly, like she was trying to stop something from breaking out. Her family rushed to comfort her, but nothing worked. Some guests believed it was just nerves, but those who watched closely said her eyes didn't look like hers anymore. Some of them started talking about possession, about how these spirits choose brides on ceremonial days. And later her family said that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened with her, which made it clear there was something sinister living inside her. Bizarre behavior. This wedding was planned at home, simple and intimate, but what the cameras captured left people disturbed. The bride, dressed and ready, suddenly went blank, unresponsive, like she wasn't even present. Her family tried talking to her, shaking her gently, but she didn't react. Then her husband-to-be walked in, and only then did she blink and respond. Some believed it was stress. Others think she was under some kind of spell. A few even claimed something supernatural had taken hold of her. Whatever it was, that moment turned a joyful day into something no one could explain. Possessed bride. This viral video was recorded during a wedding ceremony in India where everything looked normal until the camera panned towards the bride. Her eyes moved in an almost unnatural way. At first, her brother thought she was messing around, but when she stopped responding and started acting erratically, everyone around her was scared. Then the guests rushed in to hold her down as she was getting out of control. It did not look like she was acting. Seeing the scary bride, superstitious guests thought an evil force might possess her. Ghost in window. Just above a happy couple getting their pictures done at the Baker Street Library, something creepy seemed to be watching. A wedding photo captured a pale face, peeking from a window that should have been empty. It looked too clear to ignore. The bride hadn't noticed it, neither had the guests. But once the photographer shared the shot, thousands were convinced a ghost had joined the ceremony. But the photographer revealed that it was a Photoshop trick. However, this was not enough. Locals came forward later, saying that the same window had always felt eerie, and some even claimed they'd seen the same face before the photo was taken. Eerie smile. During a wedding reception in Indonesia, the bride suddenly started smiling strangely. It wasn't a happy smile, it looked almost creepy. Her husband noticed first and gently held her arm. Then her brother joined in, trying to calm her down. But she just kept staring with that same frozen smile. The video ended right there. When the video ended up on the internet, people had a lot to say. Some thought the bride was under the influence of an evil entity. Others thought the clip might be a hoax. Unseen influence. Next up is this bride who was sitting beside her husband during their reception. Then suddenly, she started dancing with her eyes closed, arms moving in a strange way. Her mother rushed in, trying to hold her still, but the bride kept swaying like she couldn't hear anyone. After watching her strange behavior, the guests recalled an old Javanese belief that if a spirit from the unseen world isn't honored before a big life event, it might try to make itself known through the bride. And that's exactly what this looked like. Floating ghost. A wedding party in Saudi Arabia took a scary turn when a group of men were dancing with full energy, lost in celebration. But the camera caught something they didn't. Right behind them, a dark figure floated by. It moved fast without touching the ground because it didn't have feet. The men didn't notice anything. But later, when someone replayed the video, people saw it. Some locals said it could be a jinn, drawn to loud music and joy. In Saudi folklore, they say if celebrations go on too long, unseen guests might join, but not all of them come to bless. Final moment. This viral clip from India showed something no one expected. It was a wedding filled with joy, with a bride and groom performing a traditional ceremony on stage, when suddenly the bride's face changed. She stared ahead, frozen, as if she saw something no one else could. Within seconds, she collapsed. Many superstitious guests called it bad luck for the families involved, but no one could say for sure what had happened to the bride. And later, when the heartbreaking news came, that she had passed away during the ceremony, everyone was sure that there was definitely something sinister at play here. Vanishing guest. The bride and groom from India were dancing joyfully at their wedding ceremony, surrounded by cheering guests. One man stood nearby, recording the moment on his phone. Nothing seemed unusual until the wedding video was played back. The footage showed the man holding the phone simply vanish mid-recording. No one bumped into him, no one looked surprised. In fact, the crowd kept dancing like nothing happened. That's when questions started. Who was he? How did he disappear so smoothly? Some now believe he wasn't a guest at all, but an otherworldly being who came to watch, captured by the camera, and gone before anyone ever noticed. Disturbing moment. The clip started like any other wedding recording, but something was off right from the start. The bride sat silently beside her groom, who was lying on the floor, not unconscious, just completely still. No one rushed to help. Instead, guests around them clapped, laughed, and cheered as if it were part of the ceremony. But their faces didn't match their actions. It was later revealed that this took place in a remote village where a wedding trance ritual was once practiced. It was meant to cleanse the couple's energy by inviting ancestral spirits. And that day, the ritual wasn't just repeated, it fully returned, taking hold of everyone present. Unknown apparition. This wedding day looked perfect, but something in the video didn't sit right. At the back of the church, a woman in all white was sitting on a bench, her face hidden under a thin veil. What's strange was that no one remembered seeing her there. She never moved, never looked up if she was not really part of the ceremony at all. When the bride's mother saw the clip, her face turned pale. She said that the dress looked exactly like the one her great-grandmother wore on her wedding day. The woman believed that the camera didn't just record the wedding, it also captured a guest who came from a different time. Ghostly guest.
A wedding crasher appears to have come from beyond the grave. To see what you think about this ghostly guest.
This photo, which was captured by a guest during a wedding in Newfoundland, made its way to a news channel. It showed a faint figure in a white coat, right above a table that seemed to hover, legs slightly faded, face unclear, almost see-through. The venue was an old wine cellar that already had a reputation. Staff had reported hearing footsteps, names, even bottles shifting on their own. But what stood out this time was how the figure looked directly at the camera. Locals believe it was the spirit of an old brewer who once worked underground and never really left. Mannequin bride. In a bridal shop in Chihuahua, Mexico, there's a mannequin named La Pascualita that feels too real. Locals believe she's not just a display piece. They say she's the preserved body of the owner's daughter, who passed away mysteriously on her wedding day. The mannequin appeared soon after her demise and looked just like her. From the eyes to the lifelike hands, visitors say it doesn't look fake at all. Some employees even quit after seeing it move slightly when no one else was around. Whether it's an incredibly detailed figure or something more haunting, La Pascualita continues to attract the attention of people watching it. Hidden truth. A woman was flipping through her old wedding photos, just reliving the memories. Then a picture came where she stood beside her young niece, both smiling at the camera. But what caught her attention wasn't their smiles, it was what stood behind them. In the corner of the frame, partially hidden, was a face that looked demonic with big haunting eyes. She rushed to her husband and showed him the photo, but he brushed it off, calling it a camera glitch, but she believed it was an evil entity. Uninvited guest. This clip came straight from Malaysia, and at first, everything looked normal. The wedding was in full swing, but then the camera panned around, and that's when things got weird. Off to the side, barely noticeable, was a strange, misty figure. Not smoke, not fog. This thing looked like it had shape and purpose, just hovering there, like it was watching. No one noticed it at the time, but when they reviewed the footage later, the whole vibe changed. That happy celebration suddenly felt like something else had been there, something that didn't belong. Black magic. The wedding was filled with joy, ladies dancing around the bride, laughing, something straight out of a dream. But then came the footage. In the middle of all that happiness, the camera caught something no one noticed live. An old lady standing at the back, holding something odd in her hand. Slowly, she stepped forward, almost unnoticed, and gently touched it to the bride's head, just for a second. At the time, no one blinked. But when the video was played back later, that moment was different. Many believe she was performing some kind of black magic. That happy memory suddenly felt eerie, like something darker had slipped through. Bizarre wedding dance. This couple was all smiles at the altar until things took a wild turn. As the pastor blessed them, they suddenly broke into loud chants and started dancing. Not just a sway or a groove. We're talking full-on stomping, shaking, arms up, like something took over. The guests didn't flinch. In fact, they started cheering like it was the most normal thing. Some believed it was the Holy Spirit touching them, but if you look closely, the way they moved, the sounds they made, it didn't feel holy to everyone. To some viewers online, this felt more like a ritual, something truly bizarre. Grandma's visit. As the couple stood taking their vows, the bride suddenly got emotional. She later shared she was thinking about her grandma, who had passed away the year before. It was a quiet, heartfelt moment, but what no one expected was what the camera picked up. Just behind the door, an old lady was standing and watching. It wasn't noticed during the ceremony, but later, when the video was played back, the bride paused the clip, stared, and said it was her grandma. Same face, same posture. Her spirit came to bless the moment she never wanted to miss. Unnoticed intruder. In the middle of a wedding, a man with a distorted face walked into the scene, strange and completely ignored by the guests. The only real reaction came from the person recording. He took a step back, unsure if what he was seeing was real. The man's face had no clear jaw, and his movements looked unnatural if his body wasn't fully in control. He made a hand gesture, almost like a cross, but in a mocking way. Some say he was just sick or playing a prank. But honestly, if he was just a man, why didn't anyone else seem to see him? Nobody knew the answer, and with uncertainty, it is still open for speculation. So, do drop a comment below. Queen Bride. At an Indonesian wedding, the mood shifted when the bride began acting differently. She was sitting on the floor and suddenly lifted her hand, starting to ask guests to bow before her, as if she was some queen. At first, people laughed, thinking it was a joke, but she didn't stop. She kept repeating the same gesture. Some guests followed her lead, unsure how to react. But others were sure that the woman was under the control of a spirit who was once a member of the royal family, and now it is reliving the moment through this bride. Face in flash. This wedding video, captured on Super 8 nearly 35 years ago, seemed normal at first, but when replayed slowly, one frame caught a bald, expressionless face near the altar. It was not a guest or someone known. The face was frozen in its place, just staring forward. The footage had no sound, only a silent proof of something no one remembered seeing. A paranormal investigator later shared the footage with everyone, and maybe that's exactly what the spirit wanted, because it didn't show itself clearly during the moment, but it wanted someone to notice it later. Uninvited lurker. Kevin and his wife had one wedding photo they loved more than the rest, until they looked a little closer. Right between them, just behind their shoulders, was a pale, round face peeking through. It wasn't one of the guests or family, and it definitely wasn't there during the shoot. A friend spotted it after his wife used the picture as her Facebook profile. That's when things got weird. Her friends joked it looked like a baby. Kevin's sister-in-law thought it might be her, but even she admitted the face looked nothing like hers. Later, the photographer admitted that he had played a prank on them, as it was a Photoshop image. Balcony watchers. A strange wedding video surfaced on Reddit, but before many could see it, the clip disappeared. All that remains now is a single photo from that day, and it's enough to unsettle people. In the background, above the ceremony, a group of people stood on a balcony. They weren't guests. They wore long gowns with tall, triangular hats, and their faces were hidden in shadows. No one from the wedding claimed to know them. They didn't move or react, just stood and watched from above. Some believe it was a local cult known for appearing during spiritual events. Others say it looked more like a silent ritual. Whatever it was, their presence still gives people chills. Today's open discussion is about this viral video from Indonesia. It showed a moment everyone had been waiting for, where the bride and groom sat before the penghulu, surrounded by family, ready to say their vows. But just before the groom could speak, the bride suddenly looked up. Her eyes were following something invisible above her, and then her expression turned confused and disturbed. A few seconds later, she began shaking and gasping, as if something had taken control of her. The ceremony came to a halt. Some said she was just overwhelmed by emotions, especially missing her late parents. But others believe she saw something none of them could, and whatever it was, didn't want the wedding to continue.